Good morning. This is the time and place for the Planning Hearing Officer meeting for November 3rd, 2010. My name is Vilija Zematitis, and I will be conducting the hearing as the Planning Hearing Officer. Today we have 3 cases on the agenda, and the relevant exhibits are posted on the panels directly behind me. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 3042, the Glendale Municipal Code, a conditional use permit may be granted only if all 4 required findings are present. They are as follows. 1, that the proposed use will be consistent with the elements and objectives of the general plan. 2, that the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the general public, safety, and environment. 3, that the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of the surrounding properties. And 4, that the adequate public and private facilities such as utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, and traffic circulation measures are or will be provided for the proposed use. We also have several cases on today's agenda that deal with parking reductions. So, applications for parking reduction permits shall meet the procedures and criteria set forth in subsection A of section 30.32.070 and table 30.32B with the qualifying project features. Findings. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the criteria just described, then the Planning Hearing Officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices which were mailed to the property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. The items were also posted on the city's website. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application request. I will then also read the reports received from any city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. And then there will be testimony taken from the applicant and members of the public. Others in support or in opposition of the application who have submitted letters will also be read into the record. And lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing arguments if desired in response to the testimonies given by the preceding speakers. The hearing will be closed and the case is taken under submission. With that said, and if you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker forms which have been provided by the front door and submit it to our planning staff. I would also like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the Planning Hearing Officer's hearing are recorded on tape as part of the public record. Okay. Today's first item on the agenda is conditional use permit case number PCUP 2010-027. The property is located at 511 through 519 Ivy Street and 514 West Broadway. The applicant is Thomas Quao of the First Evangelical Church of Glendale. The owners are First Evangelical Church of Glendale, and the case planner is Dennis Joe. Let me go through the project description, and then I'll read any comments you might have. So, the conditional use permit is to allow a church, classroom, Sunday school, and daycare center located at 511 through 519 Ivy Street and 514 West Broadway in the SFMU Commercial Residential Mixed-Use Zone, and in the R3050, which is a moderate density residential zone described as parcels A, parcel map Glendale 1362, and lots 2 and 3 and 4 of tract number 9602. The proposed use was previously approved by conditional use permit case number 10594-CU and will expire on February the 28th of 2011. Okay. Dennis, would you like to make a short, brief presentation before I read the department comments or afterwards?
I don't mind making the presentation quick.
Okay. Well,
Just a quick description of the existing property and uses. There are 4 lots for the subject property, which front on both West Broadway and Ivy Street. Like Ms. Villas-Zematias has stated, that the zones for these properties are SFMU and R3050. There are currently 3 buildings which are used as a fellowship hall, classrooms for Sunday school, a nursery, offices, and daycare. Staff's analysis of this project is that church will continue to be consistent with the objectives of the general plan as the church currently operates without any known impacts on the surrounding developments, and has existed for over 30 years. The church is requesting continue as previously approved, and it does not include any exterior modifications, added floor area, or intensification of operations. The subject institution has proven to be a compatible use and has not had any negative impacts on the surrounding low and moderate density residential uses. And given that the subject property has been currently developed with 3 buildings, adequate utilities, landscaping, traffic circulation measures are already provided. A previous standard variance was approved in 1987, which allowed the church to operate with 72 on-site parking spaces, which 15 of them were tandem spaces. There are no record on file or no negative impacts or negative comments have been received from other departments, which indicate the site has been insufficiently developed to facilitate the proposed use. To date, the subject use has demonstrated adequate utilities, parking spaces, landscaping, and traffic circulation measures. Before I end my presentation and provide staff's recommendation, staff did receive 1 phone call from an anonymous resident owner along Ivy Street, which she had concerns that some members of the church had been parking on Ivy Street. But staff's recommendation for this request overall is to approve, and it believes it has been viewed in a positive manner and recommends approval. This concludes staff's presentation and available for questions, and also the applicant as well is available.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to go over just the other interdepartmental comments. From Traffic and Transportation, there was a comment made that staff is unaware of any existing traffic and or parking related issues with the current operation of the church and daycare center. Comments from the Public Works Department. From Integrated Waste, the area must be kept free of litter during time of permit. Recycling containers must be provided for collection of all cans, glass, and plastic bottles that might be discarded, and recycled items must then be properly disposed of. The fire department does not have any major concerns related to the project. Neither does police. There are no concerns from the police department. City engineers does not have any comments. The water engineering department as well, there are no comments. And the Public Works Engineering Department does not have any comments. So, before we have the applicant come up, make his testimony, I would like to just read it, and this involves the decision-making process and the appeals for all cases on today's agenda. In terms of decisions, after the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at the meeting or by submitting written responses and providing their names and addresses. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the decision date, and the notice of appeal shall be filed with the Building and Safety Division located in the Municipal Services Building, Room 101. Okay, with that said, I would like to invite Mr. Timothy Lee as the applicant and owner of the property. And as the applicant, you have 15 minutes to speak.
Okay, all right. My name is Timothy Lee. I am a trustee for First Evangelical Church in Glendale. That's the owner of the property. And we have to satisfy the 4 basic criteria that you wanted. So the first one is how would the proposed use to be consistent with the various elements and objectives of the central plan. And the daycare and children's ministry building provides and meets the appreciated demand for quality daycare, as well as for the religious and social works of the full family zone community. The nonprofit nursery has been using the existing building on Ivy Street since its construction in the year 2000. And the church has been serving the community for this area for over 40 years. And the second criteria is why will the proposed use and its associate structures and facilities not be detrimental to the public health, safety or general welfare, or to the environment? Our response to that is the buildings comply with residential zoning standards and is a far less intensive development compared to a multi-family development designed to maximize the site development in terms of FAR, the lot acreage and height. The building also was designed to blend in with the neighborhood in scale, massing, and detailing, and surrounded by extensive landscaping. The third criteria is why will the proposed use and facilities not adversely affect or conflict with the adjacent use or impact the normal development surrounding the properties? Our response on that one is the building is designed to relate to the existing church facilities on Broadway in terms of vehicular access circulation activities with a passive side facing the multi-family zone on Ivy Street. It is further buffered from adjoining properties by landscaping and by the absence of driveways. And the small scale of the nursery operation, which is about 45 students maximum capacity, and does not significantly increase traffic flow on weekdays. Criteria number 4, explain how adequate public and private facilities such as utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, and traffic circulation measures are or will be provided for the proposed use. Our response is we have a parking of 90 spaces on the property, including the existing church parking on site. These spaces are accessible from existing driveways on Broadway only, no entry from Ivy Street at all, and will be mostly unused on weekdays. Landscaping is designed to screen the building and parking areas, and we do not use the Ivy Street for coming in or going out except for emergency, and that's basically. And we also request that the renewal period to be extended from 7 years to 10 years. And that would be starting from March 1, 2011 through February 28, 2021. Because every 7 years, it's just a waste of the city's time and money, especially in this type economic condition, and also save efforts on our part. And we have been doing this for the last 30 years, and we follow all the rules and regulations, and we keep a very low profile. And we also keep the area, the neighborhood safe in that sense. For an example, on Halloween night, we had a parking lot inside there enclosed, and we have a harvest festival, and we had over 800 people attended. adults and kids, because this way they would come into our facilities and have a party without going around and get into car accidents and so on and so on. So this concludes my part, and if you have any questions, we'll be ready to answer.
Thank you. Now, your last conditional use permit was approved in 2004. And again, this was for church activities, a daycare, Sunday school activities as well. Now, have any of your on-site activities changed since the last approval?
No.
So they remain exactly pretty much the same?
Exactly the same. In addition, our daycare have fewer students.
Has fewer students, okay.
Right.
Now, and has your congregation, the population changed or
It's
remains
about
relatively
the
stable?
Same, because it's kind of reduced a little bit because we planted another church in the Arcadia a number of years ago. We also planted another church in Diamond Bar. So every time we plant, we reduce by 100, 200 members, so we have less traffic.
Okay, so it's basically closer. These satellite churches provide
Right, we have total
services
6 satellite churches.
Okay. Okay. All right, that answers any questions that I may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are two other speaker cards. One would be from Mr. Dan Harmon, who's also noted as the applicant, and Mr. David Lau, who is noted as the architect on the project. Only if additional questions? Okay. I do not have any at this point in time. This is solely a renewal. It appears that the activities remain the same as from the previous approval back in 2004. I will make note of the fact that you've requested the extension of a 7-year approval period to a 10-year approval period. Yes, but actually the date of the approval period would start from the date of the approval itself or the decision. So, and then it would be for that period of time. So that will be noted in the decision letter. So with that said, I will take this case under submission and render a decision, and you will receive a copy of the decision letter. Oh, yes, and forgive me, no, the decision will not be sent to your home address. It will be sent actually to the address on record in the case file. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next case on today's agenda is for a parking reduction permit, case number PPR 2010-007. The project is located at 1351 East Colorado Street. The applicant is Shogi Gepremian. The owner is Mr. Larry Tamol, and the case planner is Milka Toledo. Milka, if you don't mind giving us the project description as well as your staff report.
As you stated, the project is located at 13, actually it shows, depending on where you look for the information for the address, it ranges from 1347 to 1351. And the reason why I say that, because according to LA County Assessor's Office, it shows up as 1347. However, this particular application shows it as 1351 East Colorado for this particular use. The applicant is proposing a change of use from a bakery/deli to a full-service restaurant without providing the required number of parking spaces. The project is located in the C3 Commercial Service Zone, Height District 1. The building is located on the north side of Colorado Street between Verdugo Road and Chevy Chase Drive. The subject tenant is located in a shopping center with which there currently are 6 tenant spaces at this location. And the full-service restaurant is 2,177 square feet. On this, the project does have on-site parking, and our city records show that there are 17 on-site parking spaces. However, presently there are 16 on-site parking spaces, and the reason for this is I noticed that one of the handicap stalls that was originally located, which is now correctly identified on the site plan, was basically a straight direct drive into once you enter the shopping center to the handicap stall, was relocated to one of the angled parking spaces. And that does not comply, after verifying with the building department, with ADA requirements. And again, it does not comply or is not consistent with city records. So the applicant did revise their site plan to reflect what was previously noted on record and does comply with ADA requirements. But again, this will be further reviewed during the plan check process if it moves forward. The parking lot, again, is accessed from Colorado Street, and the surrounding uses, with the exception of the rear, is commercial. The rear of the property is zoned R2250 multifamily residential. Police did not have comments related to the request. Neighborhood Services did note that there's an outstanding code violation for a exterior modification as it relates to installation of a window without zoning and building approvals. And the traffic and transportation section did have comments related to the applicant's parking reduction request due to, again, the lack of parking that already exists in the area. And then I will further go over the information and their comments in the staff report. As stated, the proposed restaurant is 2,177 square feet, and again, there are 17 parking spaces at this facility. The previous use, which was a bakery, however, the way the code defines an establishment with less than 8 seats is deli. So that's why I'm calling it deli/bakery use. It requires 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. The reason being that anything less than 8 seats would be parked at a retail parking requirement of 4 per 1,000. The change of use to a full-service restaurant, however, will require 10 per 1,000 because it's more of an intense use. So 10 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. Based on the above parking requirements, the proposed full-service restaurant will require a total of 22 parking spaces. However, the previous use required 9 spaces, and based on total gross floor area, which results in a shortfall of 13 spaces per section 3032030. And the reason being is because this is fewer than would be required for a new restaurant of this size, because the restaurant carries non-conforming rights for the previous use. Meaning, today's standards are more than or greater than what the previous requirements would be for the previous use when it was originally established. Upon review of the application, the traffic and transportation did have comments, as I alluded to earlier. The existing on-site parking spaces, or the demand for all tenants on the property, basically was stated that even if all on-site spaces were devoted to the restaurant, during peak periods there would be a 27% shortfall in parking supply. If the restaurant were only approximately 70% occupied, its customers would use all the parking and there would be no parking available for the other tenants in the shopping center. And the potential impacts for this parking shortfall would again be in turn spill over to on-street parking or adjacent parking lots, which are actually privately owned. There are no public parking facilities in the area. Presently, there is a 682 square foot full-service restaurant already in the shopping center, which would require the same 10 space per 1,000 square feet requirement as it relates to parking. And the parking already has a significant parking shortage. And based on the comments received by the Traffic and Transportation section and staff's observation during several site visits that were conducted, the need for parking at this establishment is great. And the existing tenants are open during peak lunch and dinner hours, Monday through Friday, which therefore means that the existing 17 parking spaces on site would not be sufficient to meet the needs of the new restaurant and the remaining 5 tenants. And for that reason, staff is recommending denial of the application due to, again, the fact that 17 parking spaces is not sufficient to meet the needs of the applicant's request for the change of use to a full-service restaurant and the existing commercial uses on the property. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions related to the staff report or the recommended findings, I'd be happy to answer at this time.
Yes, no, just to clarify, 16 or 17? Because this is due to the ADA changes.
Right. So
Handicap
currently there are 16 spaces on site. However, city records show that there are 17 spaces. As I stated earlier, the existing handicap parking stall that's located on the parking row along the easterly side of the parking lot does not comply with ADA requirements. So once they relocate that back to its original location, which is identified on city records, then they would have 17 parking spaces. So because what staff has on record is 17, that's why staff has indicated in the report, and we've used the 17 number as the number that should be on the site. And eventually, the applicant has agreed to bring back the 17 parking spaces accordingly.
Okay. Now, and that's going to be up for discussion in terms of during the tenant improvement, because obviously if there's a tenant improvement and
Right.
ADA Title 24 handicap accessibility kicks in, there might be this requirement to provide that additional handicap space, in which case that configuration might change
Right.
regardless.
Correct.
Okay. Now, given that it's a multiple tenant building, the square footage for the entire shopping center is, according to our building records?
according to LA County Assessor records and city records, the total floor area for the shopping center is 7,545 square feet.
And in my site visit, it appears that the on-street parking is rather now this would be the parking off-site, actually on the street, and obviously this doesn't relate to the fact of that on-site parking is required. But there's a portion that's red striped, so
That is correct. Interestingly, the property is situated in front of, I believe it's a bus stop, and that area, it jogs. So as you're coming along from, let's say you're driving from the east, and as you approach the property, I want to say there's approximately 1 or 2 spaces right in front of the existing Thai restaurant. I believe it's called Oso. I may have the name incorrect, but it's the existing full-service restaurant that I had mentioned earlier. My presentation is located on the site, and in front of that use, there are approximately, I said, on street, maybe 1 to 2 parking spaces that can occupy vehicles in that area. However, as you continue moving forward to the west, right in front of that area, again, still in front of the lot, there is basically red zone area. So therefore, there are no additional areas to park on street in front of the lot.
now the application is for a full-service restaurant.
That is
So there's
correct.
going to be, it's not considered a fast food, they're not proposing a fast food, it's a full-service
Correct.
sit-down
Correct.
service only.
Correct.
And no alcohol is being proposed at this point in time.
Not that I am aware of, and there has not been a discussion regarding serving of alcohol. I also did want to note before I conclude that we did receive a letter, actually an email communication from an interested party who's in opposition to this case. I believe his last name is Mr. Pavoni. And also I did receive a phone call, anonymous phone call of another party who had already mentioned that they had some concerns regarding the project or in the past about parties being conducted at the facility. However, we have no record of that, but I just wanted to for the record, show that we have received also phone calls.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just to briefly go through the interdepartmental comments. Engineering department does not have any comments. And I do not see any significant ones from interdepartmental waste. It's the typical recycling needs to be provided, trash enclosures. No comments from the redevelopment staff. None from water and power. There's some very standard conditions from the electrical department, such as project manager provide single line diagrams, very standard ones. Standard comments from the building and safety department. No comments from housing, of course. Comments from traffic. A full-service restaurant containing 2,177 square feet of floor area would require 22 parking spaces based on municipal code. It is staff's understanding that the existing shopping center containing the proposed restaurant provides 16 on-site parking spaces, a supply which must accommodate the parking needs of both the proposed restaurant and other commercial tenants located in the shopping center. The 16 parking spaces provided would be inadequate. Not only would the restaurant experience a 6-space shortfall during peak business periods, this would be during a 100% occupancy during breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but during these periods there would be no parking available for the other tenants in the shopping center. In fact, there would be no parking available for the other tenants in the shopping center when the restaurant was only approximately 70% occupied. Again, I believe that this is what you included in your staff report. The potential impact of this parking shortfall is parking spillover onto off-site parking facilities, including nearby residential streets and private parking lots. It's from Mr. Tom Mitchell. And no comments from the police department. Which brings us to testimony from the public, and I'd like to invite the applicant, Shogi Yerpremian, to speak first.
Good morning, Ms. Sementitis. Nice to be here. Shoik Yerpremian Consulting. You have my address and phone number on file. I'm representing the business owner and the operator of Old Yerevan, a full-service restaurant that's in front of you today. I also have with me the business owner, his family, some of the tenants from the shopping center, the property owner of the subject property, the property owner of adjacent property, and some supporters. As Vilya mentioned, the subject site is located on the north side of Colorado, just west of Verdugo Road, and is approximately 14,000 square feet of lot area. Currently, the shopping center has 5 tenants on the ground floor, which includes a laundromat, a beauty salon, a cell phone store, a flower shop, and another small restaurant at the corner. The site provides currently 16 spaces, but when we were preparing the plans, we went back and looked at city records, and the city record showed 17 parking spaces, so the architect showed 17 parking spaces, and that's what we agreed to, and that's what we suggested, that staff recognizes the 17 parking spaces compared to 16. The shopping center is non-conforming in terms of parking. Each tenant space is clearly identified on the site plan with the corresponding square footages. My client's space is the largest space within the shopping center, which is 2,177 square feet. As staff indicated, we had to file a parking reduction permit because my client's space required additional parking spaces, even though the zoning allows a restaurant at this location in C3 zone. After reading the staff report, we respectfully disagree with the staff's recommendation on the parking reduction permit. And I have identified my arguments in the application and in the findings. I would like to go over each point. I have some of these points in the findings, some I have prepared it as well. The current code, which is chapter 30.60, non-conforming uses and buildings, section 30.32.030-C, provides exceptions to the code for change of use within buildings for tenant spaces that are under 2,000 square feet. I'm sure you're very familiar with that code section. The code says, and I quote, "The occupancy in any tenant space of less than 2,000 square feet may be interchanged," and they provide a list of uses that people can use among the following land uses without the need to provide additional parking beyond that currently provided on site. My client's corner unit is 2,177 square feet. So we are just talking about 177 square feet more than what this provision says. We are not talking about 500 square feet or 1,000 square feet more, just merely 177 square feet. So what that code provision says, that basically up to 2,000 square feet, the city assumes that any of the uses that are interchanged, from retail to restaurant or some of the other uses listed, will not have an impact on parking or traffic. So the true impact that we need to look at logically and practically is 177 square feet. If we take and give credit from retail to restaurant, and one parking space basically will be credit, so we are really talking about one parking space that's short in realistic terms, based on what the code provision says. Number two, the overall tenant space is 2,177 square feet. But the seating area, if you look at this tenant space, is only 727 square feet, which is 27% of the entire tenant space. The remaining space is kitchen, one small office, restrooms, waiting area, or that entry area. There's no stage or dance floor. This is a strictly full-service restaurant. Many communities throughout Southern California and elsewhere really look at restaurants and look at the seating area, and they base their parking calculations based on the seating area. Glendale doesn't do that. But of course, in this case, my client's tenant is very unique because his seating area is very limited. He cannot expand beyond that 27% of the floor area. So I do believe that his restaurant is unique in terms of how it's designed. Number 3 point that I would like to make relates to non-conforming buildings or buildings that are designed in L-shaped. Typically, buildings that are built in the 60s, 70s. This particular building was built in 1978 and has an L-shaped building design. From design perspective, I believe L-shaped buildings, they have two flaws. Number one, parking at the front, building in the back. That's not at all pedestrian or design sensitive design. And number two, every single L-shaped building, if we look at it, as a planner, I've seen that, as a consultant, the corner units are always disadvantaged because they do not have visibility. So the corner units are always the largest units compared to other tenants in the building. So I believe that my client's square footage that's slightly over that 2,000 limit is disadvantaged because the way the building is designed. And if you visited the site, you can see that there's only one door that he has access to his restaurant. Number 4, staff indicates that there's another restaurant in the shopping center. The front unit is also a restaurant that's 682 square feet. Under the current law that I just said, which exempts certain uses under 2,000 square feet, I do believe that the way the code is written, almost every single tenant in this shopping center can be converted to a restaurant without having to go through any discretionary applications or approvals. All they have to do is file a zoning use certificate and move in because they're all less than 2,000 square feet. So I do believe that my client is also disadvantaged because of that. My client's restaurant is open during lunch and dinner. I believe the rest of the retail stores are open all day. And finally, which is my last point, even though I don't like to compare cases, but as I was looking at the agenda for today's hearing, I realized that there is another case just coming up after our case, which is also a multi-tenant restaurant expansion, and it has a parking reduction permit application. Similar characteristics. Again, I don't like to compare cases because each case is different and unique. This particular restaurant is expanding. It's much larger than my client's restaurant. It is requesting a CUP for alcohol and a parking reduction permit. Staff is recommending approval for that project, but not our project. The zoning is C3, very similar. It is a multi-tenant shopping center, 4 retail stores, full-service restaurant, and not only the full-service restaurant being expanded, but there's also a fast food drive-through restaurant. And I'm very familiar with this shopping center because I lived there for 3 years in the immediate area. A staff's report, as I was going through, keeps repeating that the current code requires 22 parking spaces. But her analysis doesn't recognize that this is a non-conforming, again, parking situation. Same with the traffic's department's comment. I did check with traffic and transportation because they did really indicate on the check mark that they do not have concerns. They do not have major concerns in terms of adverse environmental effects. And when they explain in their paragraph, they're referring to current code, not that it's a non-conforming shopping center. So I do believe that both staff and the traffic department, even though they do say there's no adverse environmental effect, they're comparing current code and what this use is proposing. I do have some support signatures from the restaurant, the tenants from the shopping center, as well as some of the clients. The letter that I got a copy of, an email from a neighbor or someone, which does not indicate who he is, Jerome Pavone. He doesn't say where he lives. He doesn't provide his address or phone number. There's no opposition that we can think of at this time, and I would like you to hear some of the neighbors, and I would like to submit those signatures for your record as well. Thank you. In conclusion, I would like to say that we did file a parking reduction permit application with all the relevant exhibits, plans, required findings for an approval. At the time, environmental review was exempt. So basically, early on in this process, someone from staff determined that this project will not have a parking or traffic impact. Otherwise, an initial study would have been required and parking and traffic would have been analyzed. The staff did not even ask for a parking study or parking analysis. So whatever we provided was sufficient. That's why we are very surprised that her recommendation was a denial. In conclusion, I would like to say that given the arguments and their justification I just presented, given that the fact that the shopping center is unique, the floor area that's on the plans is unique, and also the 2,000 square foot limitation, we do believe that it's justified. We are just talking about one parking space that's being impacted. We hope that your decision is a logical decision based on the facts of the case. Finally, I would like to say in these hard economic times, communities throughout United States are trying to make every effort to maintain and preserve businesses. And in this case, having staff deny this application, we're basically asking this particular family to close down business and not bringing in the income that they need to bring in. So I do have, as I said, the property owner of the building as well as the business operator. So if you have any questions,
Actually,
I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Ms. Yepremian. I do have a few questions, actually. Now, you mentioned one parking space differential, and I know that in the staff report it was called out that it's non-conforming, that the shopping center is a non-conforming type situation with parking that met the code when it was constructed in 1970, I believe it's 1978, but that it doesn't conform to today's code. And we're here right now to discuss the change of use solely for the restaurant, going from a bakery with less than 8 seats, which according to today's code is categorized as a deli, which has a parking requirement of 4 per thousand. So they are grandfathered in at a parking requirement of 4 per thousand, and they're changing it now to a parking requirement, to a use that requires 10 per thousand for a full-service restaurant. So that's where the differential is. So there is the ability to take a look at this project and say that there are non-conforming rights, because they're just deficient right now for 13 spaces as going forward. Now, you mentioned one parking space. How did you come up with that figure?
Well, I'm using what's currently in the code in terms of that provision that exempts uses to be interchanged without providing the additional parking. So basically, the city and the code recognizes that any change of use up to 2,000 square feet will not generate a parking demand or will not generate additional parking problem. This particular tenant space is 2,177. So we're very close to that number. So the true impact, if the city assumes that up to 2,000 square feet, there is no parking demand, then what we're really looking at is 177 square feet. That will create that parking demand.
Okay.
Okay.
I see that. And then, but the reference that you're making to one parking space?
Well, if we take that 177 square feet, and given that it was a retail before, if we give credit to that 177 square feet, that will be one space versus the actual demand will be one parking space. Realistically, not. But I mean,
but again,
when we assume that up to 2,000 square feet will not generate a parking, that's in the code. The city recognizes that. They codified it. So if the city assumes that up to 2,000 square feet there will be no parking demand, then what we're really looking at is 177. And we really wanted to be true to our measurements. I mean, I'm sure some people would have just adjusted that number, but this is what the measurements were at the time my designer went to the site. So we are really looking at 177 square feet. That's above that code limit.
Okay.
So we are really begging the city that you give this restaurant operator a chance to operate, not only that 177 square feet, but also looking at the floor plan that's very limited, 27% of his area. And if we compare that to the other project, that's much greater. Not only they have seating inside, that's over 1,500 square feet, but also outdoor seating. So I believe that if staff looked at both of these projects at the same time, why is one project looked at it more carefully or more favorably versus the other one? And so we really need, as a decision maker, the city needs to look at both of these cases and know the impacts. If we look at the current code on the next project, they would have required, I believe, 85 parking spaces, where currently they have 65. So they're short 20 parking spaces overall if we need to compare to current code. So I think this operator wants to be given the chance to operate. We're not asking for a CUP until he's ready to manage this restaurant and knows what the future is. Under the hard economic times, you know, he signed a lease, but he wants to try and see if it works as a restaurant. Again, we included all the justifications in our application and at this hearing, so we're hoping that you give us a favorable decision.
Okay, I do also have just a few more questions. I'm not sure if I should address them to you or to actually the business owner.
Okay.
No. As you're aware of this, and I'm aware of this, of the 2,000 square foot rule,
Right.
Provided in the municipal code.
Right.
Did the property owner or the business owner ever entertain the idea of making his restaurant smaller?
Well, we
to meet
looked at
that
that with
2,000
the
square foot.
designer, but it means that the other tenants have to have a larger unit size, and we didn't know where to get that square footage, because on one side you have restrooms, on the other side you have an exterior wall, and the kitchen is existing, so physically it wasn't possible. But again, looking at this restaurant tenant space, the seating area is already very limited. We didn't know where to, we looked at that actually with the designer, but we didn't know where to move that wall, except that one side which abuts another tenant. Because on the other side, it's just exterior wall. And that wouldn't work because that meant more tenant improvements. The other tenant had to agree for a larger unit, meaning more cost to them. And we didn't really want to move around.
And again, I don't know if I should address this to you or to the current business operator. Was he the operator of the bakery as well? The previous Sassoon Bakery in the
I
existing site?
believe it was someone else, right?
So this
someone
this is a recent business purchase.
For a few months he's been there, right?
Okay, so he came in and he purchased the previous bakery /
As is.
deli,
Right.
as is,
As is, it was
with the
laid out this way.
intention to convert it to a full service restaurant.
Well, he didn't know. He thought he could operate it as a restaurant. Then I believe he got a visit from Neighborhood Services. They cited him of the window that Milka brought up, and he's very much aware of it, that he needs to get that permitted. But when they checked his occupancy permit, it was for a bakery deli. That's when he had discussions with me and we started the process. But he already, unfortunately, signed the lease with the owner without knowing that he had to go through a parking reduction permit at the time.
Okay.
That's unfortunate. He can't speak English much, and his daughter's here to answer any business-related questions.
Okay. All right. Well, that.
So we are trying to work with the city if there are specific conditions you may want to have, but we're basically asking that he gets this chance, given that he's very close to that 2,000 square foot limitation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you have the original signatures for this
Yes.
petition?
I'll-
So if you don't mind, and after the hearing, we would need the original signatures, not a copy. Thank you. All right. I'd like to invite Mr. Forgive me, the first name eludes me, but it's Mr. Stefanian, the business owner, on record.
Mr. Matitis, the property owner, Larry Arnold, would like to speak first. And then from the business operator, his daughter would like to speak.
Last card. All right. Mr. Tarnell?
I just want to correct, my name is Larry Tarnol, T-A-R-N-O-L. I think they had a T-A-M-O-L or something. I'm the property owner. It's, to correct a few things, it's 1347 to 1355 East Colorado. I think you had a 1347 to 51, but it's 55. They said I'm the property owner there. When I leased the space to our new tenants here, I didn't know there was going to be any changes at all, and we thought everything was in place as he bought it, and everything was okay as I knew before. I believe they had the permit and everything like that. So, as I said, I don't know if they were going to make it a restaurant, what was going to happen on that. I just want a few more things I had to say about the street parking. It's really a lot more than you think. There's parking almost from Verdugo down to our center. It's 2-hour parking all the way that anybody could park there. And just in front of the center, they marked it red because when you come out, if there's a truck parked there or a car you can't see, which made a little sense at the time when they did that. I agreed. But there is a lot of parking. There's parking across the street. There's 2-hour parking, free parking for 2 hours too. So there's a lot of extra parking. And I believe also that our tenant will have most of his business looks like it's going to be in the evening. And if it is in the evening, That's most of the tenants, I believe, close. Most of them, I believe, close 6, 7, or 8 o'clock, and that's when his party starts, or his dinner starts, I should say. Sorry, I can't talk well. I've had a cold for the last 2 weeks. Just wanted and originally, I believe, when they opened, we have a little Japanese restaurant there, and we opened that. I don't believe it only needed at that time 2 spaces per 1,000 in 1978, if I'm not mistaken. It's a long time ago, but I think that's what the code was. That's about all of anything I can answer for you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarnell. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you.
Right, back to Mr. Stefanian, or... Okay, and has his daughter filled out a speaker card? And I'm sorry...
Anu Stefanian?
Okay, thank you.
I'll be speaking on behalf of my parents. We've basically just put all our...
I'm sorry, I can't have other cross-discussion in the audience when... Okay, thank you.
Oh.
If you don't-
Basically, we've put all our savings into this business, and with this economic fall, we really can't afford to lose this business. This is the only source of income we have. We work there as a family. We've been working there for several months, pretty much for free, trying to, pay the rent, pay bills, and yeah, we just really hope that you guys can make a good decision. And I know it's really hard, getting all those parking spaces with all those tenants in there, but we would really appreciate it if you can do something about it.
Okay, so they purchased the property a few months ago?
Yes.
Okay, and so you've been operating... They purchased it as Sassoon Bakery, and so was there the intention of creating this restaurant here at this location long? Or?
I mean, they purchased it from the previous owner and then we changed the name, but we weren't aware of all the, the whole bakery deli situation, that we weren't allowed to operate it as a restaurant because the previous owner didn't really tell us anything or tell us that, this is what needs to be done if you want to operate it as a restaurant.
Okay.
And we weren't really familiar with the whole city rules and,
Okay. So, that, I do not have any more questions for you. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Sarkis Agazarian. Forgive me that I can't read the last name. Mr. George. Thank you. If you don't mind spelling your last name for me as well, since it. I'm sorry.
Balasanov.
Balasanov. Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm ready.
And your name and address for the record, please.
My business address, or
Whichever you prefer.
East Maple, 1351, apartment 202.
Okay. And it says you're a plaza tenant?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and forgive me, this doesn't go against your time. You have a business in the
Yes, I
exact
do,
shopping
yes.
center, and that would be
But it'd be 1135 Suite A.
1135 Suite A. Okay. I'm sorry, 1135 Suite A?
1351, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's, okay. All right, please.
Okay. What I need to know. I mean, it's a great guy. I don't know, great food, very good people. I don't know what's the problem. We don't have a problem. I mean, we got the businesses over there, and nobody complaining besides some guy. And whatever it is, what his name? I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, is the problem.
And do you have any other further comments?
I don't know. Like I say, it's nice people. They open a restaurant like 7-8 months. They're trying to make money, but you see, some problems come, and I don't know.
Do you have, now your business is located in the plaza.
Yes.
Which particular tenant are you? You say Suite A. Which of the businesses?
It's the second floor.
There's a second floor. Forgive me, I wasn't aware of that there's a second floor tenant space. What is your business name then? Because,
Best Freight Solutions.
I'm sorry?
Best Freight Solutions.
Best Freight Solutions?
Trucking business.
Second floor on the subject property.
Okay, so, and forgive me, when I'm looking at this, at the sign for the shopping center,
No, we don't have.
you
we don't have a
don't have a sign on the property? Maybe Mr. Tarnell can establish the fact that, well, whether there's a property.
There's an office built upstairs.
And forgive me, actually, you're going to have to come and speak to the microphone.
I had built an office up there for myself at the time I built it, and we leased it after I moved out and moved away, so we've leased it out.
Okay.
And now there's a,
Do you have a zoning use certificate for your business?
yes, they do.
You do, okay.
It's been an
Okay.
office for years,
Okay.
really has been.
Okay, and so all right, then I just wanted to establish the fact, since obviously from the photographs and we weren't aware of,
Yeah.
I mean, there is no second store at least shown here, so. Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Armine Takmajian? You're more than welcome. I'm sure that I would assume that Ms. maybe Shogi or Premian can translate for you. Or if you don't wish to speak and you just wish to say that you're in support of the project, that's fine as well.
Okay, my name is Almine Takmazian. I work the Glamis Beauty Salon.
Okay,
My
the beauty
business.
salon. Okay.
That's it. Do you have a question? Do you have a translator?
I'm sure we can obtain, with Shogi, would you like to translate for her? Or if you're just in support of the project, you can just state that.
No, nothing. It's Dorokchunim.
Yeah, she doesn't have any complaints, so she's here to support
Okay.
the business.
All right, thank you.
That's it?
Thank you. Ms. Karine Kasayan?
My name is Corinne Kasayan, and I am the wife of the owner.
You're the wife of the owner?
Yeah, my daughter already spoke for us, but that's
Oh,
okay.
all right. And forgive me, thank you.
Appreciate it if you will approve it. And we're working. We didn't know. Then it was we cannot change. It's really hard to change to the thing restaurant. We buy it, and it did not work as a bakery, so we put everything. So I don't know if something happened, and the lease is 5-2 option until 10 years. So we don't know what will be happen. And Shogik already represent the thing rules. I don't know exactly the rules and regulations of the city. So I hope everything gonna be okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next speaker is Mr. Edgar Gavorpian.
Semititis, he is here representing his son, actually, who's a tenant in the building.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Edgar Georgian. Sorry, me, I am speaking English not good.
No, you're
But
very good.
I agree for be a restaurant in next to me because he's the very good man and cooking the very good.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
And the last card I have on this item is Mr. Mesop Stepanyan. Oh, and this is the business owner, so forgive me. Were there two? Oh, okay, Ani. Are there two? Forgive me. I have a business owner, Mesop Stepanyan, and then Harashian. Oh, you're okay. I need it. So, which one is Mr. Mesop Stepanyan? Is the father, correct? Okay. Okay. All right. We'll get the familial relationships down. So. Shogi, or forgive me, the applicant has a period of 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Semititis. I would like to submit the original signatures.
Thank you. Would you like the copy back? Okay.
Thank you for having us the opportunity to present the project and the case. Unfortunately, my clients moved into the space not knowing the rules, but when they found out the rules, they were very diligent in going through the process. Again, this project did not require environmental. It was exempt under CEQA. Staff did not ask for a parking study. I submitted all the relevant exhibits, findings, and the arguments with the 2,000 square foot limit, the size of the seating area, and some other items that I presented. So we respectfully ask that you make a logical decision in this case and give this family a chance to operate a business, especially in these hard economic times. So that concludes my presentation and arguments.
Well, in light of the fact that we have conflicting information, it appears that the Traffic and Transportation Administrator has mentioned in his official comments that there is a discrepancy regarding the number of parking spaces and the fact that the change of use would create a shortfall and create impacts. And because we have not seen a parking impact or a parking study, would your clients be amenable to providing that?
Well, I do have to check with him. I don't know to what extent. Do you want a full parking study, or do you want just a summary of the hours of the operations, which I provided in my application with different tenants, or different hours of the day, weekends? But again, in his comments, he was referring to current code, not so much the non-conforming aspect of it, and he does mark that he doesn't have major concerns.
Okay.
So I believe either staff already predetermined that they would like to deny the application, or at the end, after review, they changed their mind. But again, there's no evidence in the record for a denial decision. I think that's what we're arguing as well, that there's no decision, there's no evidence where it shows that this application will be or recommended for a denial.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a 3-minute break at this point in time and not close the hearing.
Okay.
So it will just be a 3-minute break.
Okay.
I want to come
Thank
back.
you.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to reconvene the hearing. I just needed a moment to confirm the fact that the environmental comments made by Tom Mitchell, there were no environmental comments simply because this particular project, because it's a change of use in a commercial establishment, is categorically exempt under CEQA standards, so there is no environmental required for this particular project. The comment in regards to the no comment was the fact that because there is no environmental review being done, there is no comment for that environmental review, but that his comments were placed on the routing interdepartmental list that we have, because those are his comments as opposed to addressing any environmental documentation or review that's being done. So there's somewhat two separate categories. So I just wanted to confirm that. And in terms of CEQA, parking is no longer applicable in terms of having an impact under CEQA environmental law. Whether or not there's an impact to the surrounding neighborhood or whatnot is a planning type related issue. So I just wanted to confirm the fact that the parking comments were not under CEQA law. So with that said, I will take the case under submission and render a decision, and you will be receiving the decision letter to those parties that spoke and left their mailing address. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. The final case on today's agenda is... We'll wait till the crowd clears. Would be for the property located at 2060 through 2066 Verdugo Boulevard, 6464. And this would be for Fratelli's Deli and Pizza. The applicant is Maurizio Iacono, and the owner is Paige White. If you don't mind, Ms. Toledo, giving us a staff report, please.
Sure. As you stated, actually what we have on file is 2060 through 2066 Verdugo Boulevard and 3734 Park Place, and that's actually noted on previous applications for this project. Units A, B, and C, Fratelli's Pizza and Deli, and the applicant is proposing to expand the existing full-service restaurant into the adjacent vacant tenant space, which was formerly an ice cream parlor. But again, the way it's noted in the code, it's categorized as a deli because it had less than 8 seats, which would offer the on-site sales, service, and consumption of alcoholic beverages and not providing the required number of parking spaces located at the existing commercial shopping center. The previous permits on file for this property is a conditional use permit that was granted back in January of 20th of 2000 and expired January 31st of 2005, but a new application was never filed. And there is a standards variance on file as well, and that was granted back in 1993 to allow the establishment at the time of a fast food restaurant at the existing shopping center without providing the required number of parking spaces. So we have 2 entitlements on file, but one of them expired. The application, the location is in the C3 commercial service zone and the IND industrial zone. There's a small portion along the south, I believe it's the southeast corner of the property, and it is zoned IND. The building, again, is located in a multi-tenant commercial shopping center located on the south side of Verdugo Boulevard between Verdugo Road to the west and the 2 freeway to the east. The site area is 22,570 square feet. The total area for the uses on the site is 10,222 square feet, and that includes the subject vacant tenant space. Existing uses on the site include a fast food restaurant with drive-through, 4 retail stores, and the subject full-service restaurant. The subject is vacant tenant space is 1,070 square feet, and it faces Verdugo Boulevard. It's located on the northeasterly corner of the plaza. Presently, Fratelli's Pizza and Deli is one tenant space with a combined total area of 1,940 square feet, and that's units B and C. And the proposal involves, again, expanding their dining area to the adjacent 1,070 square foot vacant tenant space. Currently, there are 65 on-site parking spaces in the shopping center, which serves all uses on the site. The parking lot is accessed from Verdugo Boulevard, and the surrounding uses include, again, retail to the north and the west, industrial offices and storage to the south, which would be the rear, and multifamily residential to the east along the southwest corner of Verdugo Boulevard and Valley High. But that, again, that's away from where these particular uses are. That's further to the east. So, again, today the applicant is requesting two entitlements. One would be the conditional use permit, and later I will discuss the parking reduction permit. Fratelli's Restaurant has been in operation for the past 13 years. The applicant has indicated that they do have a current alcohol and beverage control license. Again, however, they don't have a current CUP that is active on file. And so, therefore, their intent is to address the issue, and therefore they have applied for a new conditional use permit. According to the police department, the property is located in a census tract which allows for 6 on-sale establishments. Currently, there are 5 on-sale establishments in this tract, and based on Part 1 crime statistics for this census, in 2009 there were 81 crimes, which is 4% below the citywide average of 84. The police department indicates that this proposal is not anticipated to create any major concerns for law enforcement. And so, therefore, they don't have actually any major concerns or suggested conditions for this application. City records indicate that the most recent zoning use certificate for the adjacent vacant was classified again as a deli, which required 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area, and the expansion or change of use would be classified as a full-service restaurant, which required 10 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. And as a result, the project will have a parking shortfall of 7 spaces, but it is not anticipated that the sale of alcoholic beverages nor the expansion of the restaurant will intensify the parking demand to any significant degree, as indicated in the parking discussed further in the staff report, and I will go over it briefly. There is adequate facilities, private facilities that would be in place, and the applicant's request would not require any new city services. The full-service restaurant and ancillary on-site service of alcoholic beverages is not anticipated to intensify the parking demand to any significant degree, and would not adversely impede or conflict with adjacent uses or the normal development of the property. So as it relates to the conditional use permit, the findings would be made or could be made in a favorable manner. As far as the parking reduction permit, as previously stated, the subject restaurant is proposing to expand their dining area. So currently, and I know I've repeated these numbers, but I'd like to emphasize, the existing restaurant is 1,940 square feet. The proposed area of the expansion is 1,070 square feet. The total combined area for both the existing and the new would be 3,010 square feet. Presently, there are 65 on-site parking spaces. The previous use as a deli required 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. The change of use would require 10 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. And based on parking requirements noted in the zoning code, the proposed full-service restaurant will require 7 parking spaces, and therefore there's a parking shortage for 7 spaces being requested. The applicant did provide a parking study, which was reviewed by the Traffic and Transportation section. The parking occupancy survey was conducted by the project applicant over a week-long period that would be Monday through Sunday. The number of occupied on-site parking spaces within the commercial center's 65 parking lot was recorded every 30 minutes between 10:30 a.m. and 10:30 p.m. Upon review of the application, the Traffic and Transportation staff concluded that on a weekday, the greatest parking demand was for 36 spaces. And as a result, there were at least 29 vacant parking spaces at all times. On a weekend, the greatest demand was for 26 spaces, and as a result, there were at least 39 parking spaces vacant at all times. The parking occupancy survey demonstrated a parking surplus of at least 29 spaces at all times throughout the entire week. So therefore, the restaurant's expansion's demand for 7 parking spaces could be accommodated within the existing on-site supply of 65 parking spaces. Again, this is a commercial shopping center, which this is the only full-service restaurant on site. The existing fast food restaurant has a drive-through, and that based on several observations and the fact that I also live in the area, I've noticed that most of the traffic or activity that occurs at the fast food restaurant is basically drive-through. That's one of the reasons why there's a surplus in the parking. So again, every situation's unique, and the advantage here is that there is actually 65 parking spaces, which is a pretty good number of parking spaces to have at a shopping center that was built many years ago in the past, compared to other shopping centers which are also non-conforming as it relates to parking. If you have any other further questions for staff, I would conclude my remarks at this time.
No, thank you, Ms. Toledo. That was very thorough. So I would like to go through the interdepartmental comments. Oh, and there were 2 letters that were submitted.
Oh, yes, there was actually, if I recall, there's 2 in support.
Correct.
Of this this request, both the CUP and the parking reduction permit. Thank you for reminding me.
No, that it appears that that Andy's Transfer and Storage, which I believe is the storage facility directly to the rear. Yes, Mr. Cronin, the general manager submitted a letter in support, and there's also a Mr. David Parker as well. So those 2 individuals submitted letters in support. As in regards to the interdepartmental comments, fire engineering, no comment. I'd like to read over his comments into the record as well. Based on discussions with, and this would be from Traffic and Transportation, Mr. Tom Mitchell. Based upon discussions with community planning, it is staff's understanding that the proposed project would be located within an existing shopping center containing a variety of retail and a restaurant use. As proposed, a 6-space shortfall in code required parking would occur as a result of the project, i.e. the conversion of a 1,070 square foot retail use requiring 4 parking spaces per 1,000 to a restaurant requiring 10 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. The applicant is requesting a parking reduction permit in response to the said 6-space shortfall. In order to identify the potential impact of the shortfall, a parking occupancy survey of the existing shopping center's parking supply could be conducted. Specifically, which I believe this is his request to essentially provide a parking study, which actually Ms. Toledo just went over. If at least 6 unoccupied parking spaces exist during each survey period, it could be concluded that the code-based parking shortfall would not result in a significant and adverse impact upon parking. If fewer than 6 unoccupied parking spaces exist during the survey, the code-based requirement would need to be satisfied via on-street parking in the area or via off-street. So again, just to reiterate, it appears that the parking study that was submitted in response to Mr. Tom Mitchell's questions adequately presented that there would be no shortfall. Okay. Police. The police did not have any comments. They submitted documentation saying that in the census tract, 6 on-sale establishments in the census tract 6, there would be 6 ABC alcoholic beverage control licenses would be permitted. There are currently 5 existing, but again, this is solely for the expansion of the restaurant and to renew the expired CUP. So this is one of the existing 5. And it appears that based on Part 1 crime statistics for the same census, in 2009, there were 81 crimes, 4% below the citywide average of 84. So, and this would be for the CUP. You're looking at an overconcentration of alcoholic beverage sale licenses and whether it is in a high crime area. And it appears that from the police department comments, it's not in a high crime and it's not in an overconcentrated census tract. Public Works Engineering, they do not have any comments whatsoever. Building Department, just standard comments that any necessary permits be obtained. Neighborhood Services, which would be the code enforcement, does not have any comments. That concludes the interdepartmental comments from other city departments. I would like to invite the applicant, Mr. Mauricio Iacono. Thank you. You have 15 minutes. Good morning.
I'd like to read the 4 findings that are required. How will the proposed use be consistent with the various elements and objects of the general plan? We have been operating since March of 1997. We have always served beer and wine and have never had any problems with the landlords, public, or the state of ABC office. We've never had any issues with them. Why will the proposed use and its associated structures and facilities not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare, or to the environment? We are located in a private plaza with surrounding businesses and have never had any problems with any of the surrounding areas. Why will the proposed use of facility not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent use or impede the normal development of surrounding areas? We have been in the local community for at least 13 plus years. We have never had any conflicts with any of our adjacent businesses or any businesses in the immediate areas. Explain how adequate public and private facilities such as utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, and traffic circulation measures are or will be provided for the proposed use. We have had the parking lot. We have had the parking lot surveyed and have never gone past the 60% full mark. I have enclosed the parking survey, which has been read. And I'd like to add that the owner of the plaza has been here, and if any issue with any of the parking, he is the first one to hear it from the tenants. And over the last 13 years, we have never had any problems. And the CUP for the beer wine is actually a renewal. We've had it before. Never had any problems with the ABC or the city whatsoever, with the police department or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I also have a speaker card from Mr. Page White.
Hi, I'm Paige White, trustee of the White Family Trust that owns the property. A couple of quick comments. I can only agree with your recommendation to approve this, but so I should probably say nothing, but my office is right around the corner, so I go by this property 3 or 4 times every day. First thing is, Joe Cronin and Dave Parker were for this. This was unsolicited. I wasn't surprised, but unsolicited, and we try to keep things harmonious with the neighbors around the property. That's number one. Number two, the only one tougher in the city on parking is me, because I get the call from the other tenants if there's problems, and we haven't had any problems. And point of fact, I have tried to take great care in having the tenants, the mix of tenants, have different flows of parking so that even if he were 200% full, we wouldn't have a parking problem. So that is not a concern of mine and not a concern of my tenants. And point of fact, you've all have been there. You live around there. It hasn't been a problem. Third, I was concerned about alcoholic beverages 12 or 13 years ago because we didn't have any there, and we haven't had any problems at all. And point of fact, there are no wild parties. Well, I will leave my comments there. They're not like some other restaurants, so that, and a lot of his business is takeout, so that the alcohol and the parking isn't a problem. If you have any further questions, please address me.
Thank you, Mr. White. I do not have any further
Okay.
questions.
Thank you very much.
Seeing as I have no other speaker cards, I will take this case under submission. Thank you very much. And then